Hi, this is Les-Levine, the self-proclaimed voice of truth and reason in Ohio sports. Welcome to the latest reinvention of More Sports and Les-Levine. ms&ll began as a radio talk show in 1989 and has been on the air virtually every weeknight since. It began on WERE radio, moved to WHK, then it ran radio until 1996, when it all moved to Sports Channel and then Fox Sports, then through a variety of cable systems throughout Ohio, then to Spectrum Sports. And for almost a year and a half, we've enjoyed our partnership with cleveland.com. Till now, we must be doing something right. Now we are in uncharted territories. Our goal is to entertain you in a world that is not very entertaining. The show may look different to you, as we will have no guest in studio, and we'll be working with a skeleton crew, which we hope will not take long for you to get used to. The guests will appear on Skype or from some remote location, audio only, but here is where I need your help. For well over 20 years, the show has relied on callers more so than guests. That may have to change under these dire circumstances. If you're a fan of More Sports and Les-Levine, I'm asking for your help. If you see we don't have a guest or you think you can help the show, pick up the phone and call us at 216-575-0403. The show has always had the reputation of having the smartest, most informed, and funniest of any talk show in the history of Northeastern Ohio. Now I'm asking for help to continue this show for maybe the next 24 years. And one more thing, if you can, while we are getting used to getting through this disaster, and certainly while we're on the other side of it, please, please, please support our advertisers. You know who they are, and you know how important they are to the success of this show. And a special thank you goes out to Mike and Deb Bacon of Classic Teleproductions, who somehow gets this show to you as they have for the past 7 years, sometimes miraculously. We're going to sink or swim on this together. The new version of More Sports and Les-Levine begins now with Dan Labbe of cleveland.com and The Plain Dealer. I hope you enjoy. From the worldwide headquarters of More Sports and Les-Levine, it's a Monday night, a brand new week. Good evening, everyone. Welcome once again to More Sports and Les-Levine into its 24th consecutive year, seen exclusively on cleveland.com. On the other side, we have Dan Labbe of cleveland.com and The Plain Dealer. He, of course, does a great job covering the Cleveland Browns and lots to cover over the last week or two. Let's check in with Dan. Hello, Dan. How are you?
Hey, Les. How are you? It's good to see you, even if it's over Skype.
Well, we're socially distancing ourselves. Welcome to the show, the new incarnation.
Yeah, right, exactly.
More Sports and Les-Levine. All right, so what are the Browns doing these days? First of all, they made a little news off the field. Jimmy and Dee Haslam donated $1.5 million, $1 million to Cleveland relief concerns, and another $500,000 down in Columbus, where they, of course, have the soccer team. So kudos to them for doing that.
Yeah, and like you said, kudos to them. They've been very involved in Ohio and Cleveland with a lot of school initiatives and getting kids to school, redoing sports fields and things like that. So ever since they've come here, obviously, we've been critical of them at times as football owners, but as far as members of the city of Cleveland and citizens of Ohio, they've done a great job to give back to the community, and this is just another example.
Now, if Jimmy could only play quarterback.
Yeah, and or if he could help Baker Mayfield get a little better at it.
A little pressure on him, yeah. 216-575-0403 is the number to call. Dan Labbe with us. The Browns got busy early when free agency opened up, and it seemed to never stop. And it also seems they didn't just take some players just for the sake of taking players. It looks like there was a plan, or am I missing something here?
There absolutely was a plan, and it started with Austin Hooper. They needed a tight end, so they went out and they got the best tight end on the market, and they made him the highest paid tight end on the market. They needed 2 tackles, so they went out and got the best tackle available in Jack-Conklin, and he'll be able to come in and play right tackle, we're assuming. I think we're going to be able to maybe talk to him tomorrow on a conference call, and then maybe kind of find out what he's thinking about the right or left side. But either way, they fixed that. And then they've attacked the safety position. That room kind of emptied out, especially after they parted ways with Morgan Burnett. It doesn't look like Demarius Randall's going to be back, so they've added a couple of veteran safeties, some depth on the defensive line. it's been very aggressive, like Andrew Berry promised, but also very targeted, and that's a positive step for this team.
Yeah, we're so close to the situation. We think that all the incidents that come about, whether it's Baker Mayfield, whether it's Odell Beckham, whether it's the ownership or general manager or whatever, and you think that the team gets a bad reputation around the NFL world, and apparently that's not the case because high quality players. Yeah, I understand they take more money than maybe they would do it on a totally open market, but apparently some of the negatives about the Cleveland Browns are at least wavering a little bit.
Yeah, and like you said, money talks. That's going to be what ultimately draws these guys here. Is if the Browns have a bunch of money to offer, they're going to come here. But at the same time, you can, say to Jack-Conklin, you're great in zone blocking, and that's the scheme we're going to run. You can say to Austin Hooper, hey, Kevin Stefanski loves tight ends, and we're going to put tight ends out there, and you're going to get all kinds of opportunities, heading into your third contract down the road. So there's a lot of reasons that teams would like this. If you have Joe Woods as your defensive coordinator, this guy was the defensive backs coach in San Francisco, a very successful defense. So guys are going to want to come play for him. So there's certainly some appeal here, even though the winning hasn't been there.
Yeah, and you take a look at the way the Browns sign guys. Several guys came in on one-year deals. I don't think I've seen that much of that, but the Browns weren't hesitant about doing that, and the players weren't hesitant about taking it.
I thought that was interesting, and I think a lot of that maybe is maybe a sign of what they want to do in the draft. Now, I would be shocked if they didn't go left tackle at number 10, unless maybe Isaiah Simmons is there and they fall in love with him. But after that, they can start to stack some of these guys. They can add safeties in the draft if they want. And if these safeties come in and beat out veterans for jobs, it's not a big deal because you handed out one-year deals. So they can start to stack talent on top of some of these free agents.
All right, not a safety, but the Browns did get a new cornerback in Donovan Olumba. What do we know about him?
He's a young guy. He spent time on practice squads. I think right now he's more of a special teamer. They also added Kevin Johnson to kind of play their nickel. And they're just going to throw defensive backs out there. You've got to throw bodies to that position, especially at the nickel position. And Donovan Olumba is a guy that he's been around a little bit, hasn't played a ton, but you take chances on guys like this at the bottom of your roster to try and come away with a steal.
That's not the same Kevin Johnson who was the mayor of Sacramento, right?
I don't think it's the same guy as him. I don't think it's the same guy that used to play receiver for the Browns either. I hope not, because you're just got a lot older.
No question about that. All right, they're also getting a new safety in Andrew Sendejo. Tell me about him.
A veteran guy and a guy that actually has a little bit of an interesting backstory. Did not get drafted, really didn't get any undrafted free agency deals. He actually went and played in the UFL for a year. Spent a lot of time in Minnesota. Went to Philadelphia for a year last year and then ended up back with Minnesota. Just a veteran presence to have in that room because they don't have a lot of safeties right now. They've got Sheldrick Redwine, who they drafted last year. He barely played. They just don't have a lot of guys that can play that position. So while his age maybe doesn't fit the mold of what this team is looking for right now, I think you've got to have veterans and guys that have played.
Don't we just assume somewhere on his resume is a Minnesota Vikings year or 2 or 6?
A ton of them. He was in Minnesota for a while, and then he ended up with Philadelphia, and then they released him, and Minnesota brought him back. So yeah, there's those Minnesota ties.
That's just the way the game is played, right? You get a new head coach, and he brings as many guys in that he's familiar with. There has to be a point where maybe some of the other players might resent it, but they're not at that point right now.
Yeah, we see it over and over again, no matter what anybody says. They bring in their guys, they jettison other guys. It is interesting that they're going with, more Minnesota players because obviously Stefanski's an offensive guy and Joe Woods came from San Francisco. But, Stefanski was there for a long time. So even on the defensive side, he knows a lot of these guys.
All right, I'm sort of lost myself in the number of free agents who were signed. I think it's 7. Is that correct? Something like that. So tell me, you got to have a top 3.
It's a big number. Yeah,
it is a big number.
7.
All right, tell me who your top 3 are.
So my top 3, I've got to go with Jack-Conklin, number 1. You needed 2 tackles. You have to protect Baker Mayfield. He fits what you want to do. He's a guy you could have drafted back in 2016, but you traded out of that pick and let Tennessee have him at number 8. So now you kind of right that wrong. So I've got him as my top signing. Austin Hooper, just because of what he can do for this offense, is my number 2. They're going to run a lot of 2 tight end sets. I don't know if you can trust David-Njoku to be your top tight end. So you've got to go and get a guy like Austin Hooper to be that pass-catching tight end. And I'm going to go with a little bit of a wild card here. Andrew-Billings, who they signed away from Cincinnati. And not that he's going to come here and put up huge numbers or start, but he gives you depth on the inside behind Sheldon Richardson and Larry Ogunjobi. He's a guy you can kind of take a look at and see if you want to extend because he's still a really young player. He's one of those one-year deal guys, but he's a guy that's got some talent. And I kind of like bringing him in and putting him on that defensive line where you need depth.
All right, Jack-Conklin and Austin Hooper, as well as Andrew-Billings, all the top three from Dan Labbe of cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. You can, if you're aware, the Ohio Lottery has paid out over $1 billion, and they've done that in winnings over the past 6 months. People are winning in record numbers, and winning is happening all over the state of Ohio. Play an Ohio Lottery game and play it today. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/more-sports-and-les-levine with new content posted each and every day. All right, we've talked about defensive backfield. We're going to come back. We'll talk a little bit about the defense side of the ball at the front line of defense. Back in a moment. More Sports and Les Levine continues exclusively with Dan Labbe on cleveland.com.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
As a kid growing up, my dream was to go to college, play baseball, and get a degree. Coming out of high school, I had two choices. I was accepted into a four-year university, but I decided to come to Tri-C after receiving a scholarship. I got my associate's degree at Tri-C. They transferred all my credits straight into Baldwin-Wallace, so I started at Baldwin-Wallace University as a junior. My name is Tyler Leonard, and I earned my first degree at Tri-C.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
This portion of More Sports and Les Levine brought to you by Northeast Factory Direct. Birthdays for today, the 23rd of March. Patty Cake, no matter how you slice it, it's her birthday. Moses, this is a pretty good basketball day. Moses Malone, Jason Kidd, Brandon Marshall, Maurice Jones-Drew, and who's that on the left? Who knew that Kyrie Irving's number with Brooklyn was 11? Anybody know that? 216-575-0403 is the number to call. Dan Labbe is with us. Dan, we talked in the first segment, talked about a couple of defensive backs, cornerbacks and safeties. Now let's move to the defensive line and linebackers. Every time we put this up about Olivier Vernon, they say, oh, he's still with this team? Why do I assume he's not going to be with us and he still sticks to us, or at least the roster?
Yep. We're still kind of playing the waiting game there because it makes sense. He's due $15 million. It costs nothing for the Browns to move on from him. It would make sense to part ways with Olivier Vernon, but maybe this is just a situation where they aren't going to move on until they find somebody better. They need depth at that position, and even though the last 2 years he struggled with injuries, hasn't played a full season like it says on there since 2016. Maybe they want to wait till they can kind of lock in his replacement before they part ways.
And who would have thought that he'd be the highest paid Cleveland Brown?
Yeah, and that's really part of the problem is you want to say, well, it's $15 million for 1 year. Just pay it. You have a talented defensive end, but sometimes you have to kind of weigh what's the locker room going to think if that guy's the highest paid player? How's that going to affect other guys? Myles-Garrett is due an extension here soon. So there's some politics involved too in this decision, I think.
How about when you look at it, Vernon? they got rid of 2 linebackers here. You're keeping Vernon here at this point anyway. Do you think they're going to regret the 2 linebackers they lost?
I think Christian Kirksey was on his way out to begin with based on his contract, what he was due. He's finished his last 2 seasons on injured reserve. I always liked Christian Kirksey as a player, but you just couldn't count on him these last 2 years with the injuries. As far as Joe Schobert, look, it was a lot to pay for Jacksonville. But I do think they're going to miss him as the quarterback of their defense. He wasn't the best tackler. He wasn't a great run defender necessarily, but he was a good coverage linebacker. And he really was the middle of that defense. He was that Mike linebacker that you always look for, a guy that can make the calls, make the adjustments, had a nose for the football. I think they will miss Joe Schobert a little bit.
And it's interesting that you've got that the other team, the team that you're bidding against, thinks your guy's better than you think he is, because you see him every day.
Yeah, I think so. You take a guy for granted, and you're kind of exposed to what he can't do, and you sometimes forget what he can do really well and how that fits. And the reality is now you've got to find somebody to play that position, whether it's Mack Wilson or somebody else. It's going to be a big ask to fill Joe Schobert's shoes.
All right, you take a look. There's a couple of big names out there if the Browns want to go that way, either linebacker or defensive line. Everson-Griffen is a name we keep hearing. What do we need to know about him? 32 years old.
Yeah, he's 32 years old. There's those Minnesota ties, but this is a guy that played well last year. He had 8 sacks. A couple of years ago, he had a really good year as well. He's still got something left, and he played a lot of snaps last year too. So this is a guy that I think you could come in, and you wouldn't see him necessarily as a part-time player. I think you could see him as a full-time player, which maybe makes paying him a little bigger money, even if it's on a 1 or 2 year deal, a little more palatable.
And he's a 4-time Pro Bowler, including this past season, 2019.
Yeah. And having veterans on that line, young guys like Myles-Garrett, Larry Ogunjobi, having veterans on that line can't hurt.
All right, tell me about the defensive end free agent Jadeveon-Clowney, who I think everybody who knows football at all remembers that play he made against Michigan in a bowl game, and maybe that stuck with him. How good has he been over the years?
I mean, it got him the number 1 pick that year, and I think Clowney is a guy, he's not necessarily that classic. He's going to go out and pile up sacks defensive end. Now, a couple years ago, 2 years in a row, he combined for 18.5 sacks. He had 9 one year, 9.5 another. Not as many this past year. He's a very good run defender, but he can create pressure and he can get in the backfield. He's a younger guy, so if you signed him, you'd probably be looking to sign him longer term. So they'll have to decide if that's the type of defensive end they want. He's not necessarily a guy that's going to rack up sacks, at a Myles-Garrett level or what, something like that, but he can create pressure and he can stop the run.
Yeah, last year in 13 games, 31 tackles, 3 sacks, and 4 forced fumbles in 2019. Is this a guy you would, if you were making the decisions, Dan, is that a guy you would go after?
I would take a look at him, and I think he's going to be expensive. I think he's looking for a lot of money right now, but if he doesn't find that money, maybe you can get him on a shorter deal or a little cheaper of a deal. But if you're going to pay big money to somebody, he's right in that age range where you're going to pay that money. Again, you have to be careful because you are going to have to pay Myles-Garrett soon. You're going to have to pay him sooner rather than later. So you have to be careful committing too much money to a guy like Clowney. And if that price starts to come down a little bit.
Yeah, and you hope that they'll have to pay that kind of big money for Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, that, him, and Denzel Ward and other guys who are coming up. You hope you have to start paying these guys big money. Right. So you don't want to lock up too much in a guy like Clowney.
216-575-0403 is the number to call. You can email us during the show at real-les-levine@gmail.com. Dan Labbe, cleveland.com, and the Plain Dealer with us. Northeast Factory Direct. They've got 3 great locations. You see them right there, West 140th, as well as Lakeland Boulevard in Euclid, the Freeway Drive location in Macedonia, plus the great website you want to check out before you go. And you can handle it all over the website or talk to them in person, northeastfactory.com. They now have the best price guarantee. Alex has been in the business 20 years now. He started it off with 1 piece of furniture in his garage in Lakewood, and look what he's turned it into, one of the most successful businesses in all of Northeastern Ohio. Check it out, and if you buy something at Northeast Factory Direct, you find out sometime in the next year that you paid more than you would have paid at some other place, Alex will refund the money immediately and get it right back to you. Alex and Northeast Factory Direct with the 1-year best price guarantee. We'll come back. We'll get an updated look at the offense, which has players all over the place and potential all over the place. More Sports and Les Levine continues exclusively on cleveland.com.
Celebrate Naturestone's 30-year anniversary with a free Naturestone floor. During 2020, we will be giving away 30 free floors to 30 very lucky customers to say thank you for making Naturestone the best concrete flooring solution for garages, basements, and more. Call or visit naturestone.com today to register to win, and we'll send you a copy of our new buyer's guide absolutely free. There's no purchase necessary. Winners will be chosen monthly. With over 30 million square feet installed for more than 60,000 customers, it's easy to see why I always say it's not just a floor. Wow, it's Naturestone.
Got your Ohio Lottery pick 3, I see.
Yup. Those glasses are hip.
Hip? Most people think I'm a square. But what's wrong with that? A box bet can increase your chances of winning. And what is a box? A square. There are so many ways to play. There's coming out the wazoo. Oh, shucks. Look at me yammering on. Put a lid in it, Picky Ricky. Play the Ohio Lottery Pick 3 today.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's Kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget. Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Time for a How Come Quickie. I don't know if you agree with this, Dan, but how come the only people who can read TV weather maps are TV weather people? I've said this a million times. All we want, you learn about isobars and all, you learn everything about, you think you're getting a science class when all you want to know if it's going to rain or snow tomorrow.
Yeah, it's so complicated. I don't get it.
There's no quiz at the end of the newscast. 216-575-0403 is the number to call. Dan, when I I think about the Browns offense, I don't know, of course, there's some injuries involved and surgeries involved, but I don't know if you're talking about a great running team or a great receiving team. Now you added a fullback to change the look a little bit. What are the Cleveland Browns in 2020? What are they? They offense, defense? Are they run? Are they pass? You tell me.
I think they're going to be a healthy mix. And I think the positives come in the fact that you can identify exactly what Kevin Stefanski wants to do. When you look back at Minnesota, they're going to have that wide zone scheme. You're going to run the football. Nick-Chubb is going to fit perfectly in there. He wanted a fullback. You went and got a fullback. And he wants to run 2 tight ends. And so you went and got a big-time tight end. You already have David-njoku. I think there's other guys on this roster they might like at that position too. So they're going to be a mix. They're going to run bigger personnel, but I do think they are going to be a little more run-heavy than they were last year. I think that you're not going to see this spread-style offense or any kind of air raid offense. They're going to line up with big personnel, and they're going to come at you.
All right, so if you're a defensive coordinator getting ready for the Cleveland Browns, at least in the first part of the season, what are you preparing for? A little of everything? Because just by having a whole bunch of things takes time out of valuable practice time to prepare, and you may not even have to use it.
Well, I think the first thing you have to prepare for is how do you stop Nick-Chubb? Because we saw what he did last year, and again, I just think the scheme fits him perfectly. He's poised for a really big year, and then you add in Kareem-Hunt and his versatility. So you've got to figure out a way to stop that backfield. And then the real challenge, you hope, is going to come in how do you defend the tight ends? That's a really difficult position to defend. Do you go small and maybe risk getting run on, or do you go big and keep linebackers on the field and maybe risk losing those tight end matchups? And that's what the Browns are hoping to create, make these defensive coordinators make decisions, especially with their linebackers and their safeties. Who are they going to play and who are they going to match them up against?
I wonder when the new guy comes in like Kevin Stefanski, and he looks at the roster and he's spent so much time looking at film over the last month or so. Do you think he looks at it and says, my goodness, I had no idea there was such talent that they're giving me? Or boy, what a lot of weaknesses all over the place. What do you think he's thinking, or is that a combination of things also?
I think he knows the talent, right? I think he knows who Odell Beckham is and Jarvis-Landry. So he comes in and kind of knows the talent already. I think that's what the Browns are trying to sell him on when in that interview process. They have to sell themselves a little bit too, I think, to him. I think he's coming in and noticing, hey, the offense was really slow last year and moved really slow. We want to change that. They kind of forced these 3-4 receiver sets and didn't make life difficult with Nick-Chubb and Kareem-Hunt. Alex Van Pelt even said in his opening press conference that he wants to see more of Nick-Chubb and Kareem-Hunt on the field together. So I think those weaknesses stand out probably more than anything. He's going to sit down and look at it and say, why did they do it this way? Why didn't they do it this way? This is the way I do it.
All right, so is he looking at it also as saying, well, they were 6-10, but he's not going to put down the former coach, Freddie Kitchens, but to himself, he must be thinking, just get an average performance by the head coach. That might be 7 or 9 right there. And then you make Stefanski the good head coach. Comes in, that's 8-8 or 9-7. I'd be thinking, boy, I don't have such a hard thing to do to match what these guys did or beat it. I think the bar is rather low for him.
I agree. I think this team was better than 6-10 last year. And I think he's got to think that too. And just look at what they've done this offseason. They didn't go out and rebuild this roster completely. They've added to the roster as opposed to sending a bunch of guys packing and trying to acquire a bunch of draft picks. They're trying to add to the roster and get it better. So I think he certainly looked at last year and said there were things that he can do and that his staff can do better that you hope will lead to more wins. It's easy to say that, of course, in the spring. You've got to actually translate that in the fall. I think a lot of coaches have probably come in and said that.
Well, one thing they've done in the last couple of days or last week or so by signing Jack-Conklin, a legitimate offensive lineman. Let's take a look at the offensive line now. You've got, if the season were to open today, at left tackle, probably Chris Hubbard, Joel Bitonio at left guard, Treader in the middle, Wyatt Teller and Jack-Conklin to round things out. Second team, Drew Forbes, Willie Wright, Colby Gossett, and Kendall Lamb. That's how that looks, but it's certainly going to look different come fall. What's your first thought about the offensive line?
The first thing you have to do is figure out that left tackle situation. I don't think you want Chris Hubbard as your starting left tackle. Hopefully you'll be able to address that at number 10 in the draft if they don't go out and sign somebody like a Jason Peters or someone like that. I would imagine that they're going to try and address that in the draft. As far as right guard, I don't think we got to see enough of Wyatt Teller last year and what he's capable of. And if you fix the rest of that line, so if you have 2 good tackles, we already know what Bitonio and Treader can do. You can maybe fudge right guard a little bit. And you can maybe say, you obviously need to have a good player there, but do you have to have a top of the line, expensive player there? Maybe not. You can hide some deficiencies if the other 4 spots are strong.
Yeah, you look at Pro Football Focus, there's not that much difference between the average guy and the just above average guy, offensive lineman.
Yeah, they had a guy like John Greco in there a few years ago who's a good player, but he was actually, I think it speaks to how good that line was. He was maybe the weakest link on that line, but he was in there for his versatility. He could play some center, and he was better because they had 4 other really good linemen around him.
Dan Labbe is with us, cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. Dan, you mentioned earlier that the rushing attack and the passing game should be a little of each. Now that you put that whole thing together, showing the graphics of the starting lineup at this point anyway, what thoughts go through your mind? How many more changes do they really need?
I don't think they need that many more, honestly, unless they really don't believe that Odell Beckham and Jarvis-Landry are going to be back healthy. I think they have to feel good about where they are. You look at the skill positions, you're strong. The key is going to be Baker Mayfield. It's something we're going to talk about over and over again. It's going to be Baker Mayfield, progressing and fitting into this system like he's supposed to and making the throws he's supposed to make. And if he's able to do that, this offense is going to be better than it was last year. If he looks like the Baker of last year, it honestly doesn't matter if that system changes much. He has to be better.
Are you hearing some stuff sneak out from his camp, if he does have a camp, that whether his attitude has changed or if it's a little of what it was last year? Or what are you hearing about him?
It seems like he's a little quieter this offseason. He was very out there last year, doing a lot of interviews, and we kind of saw what he was doing if you followed him along on social media all the time. It seems like this has been a little more low key of an offseason. I think like the rest of this organization, Baker Mayfield couldn't help but be humbled a little bit by last year.
Well, that's what marriage does to you.
Yeah, right?
I guess. 216-575-0403 is the number to call. Dan Labbe is with us. You can explore your interests, find a program that puts you on a path to bright future from Tri-C, offering more than 1,000 courses and over 140 career and technical programs. Go to tri-c.edu and find out more information. We'll get an updated look at the defense when we get back. More Sports and Les-Levine continues exclusively on cleveland.com.
As a kid growing up, my dream was to go to college, play baseball, and get a degree. Coming out of high school, I had two choices. I was accepted into a four-year university, but I decided to come to Tri-C after receiving a scholarship. I got my associate's degree at Tri-C. They transferred all my credits straight into Baldwin-Wallace, so I started at Baldwin-Wallace University as a junior. My name is Tyler Leonard, and I earned my first degree at Tri-C.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
It takes attention to detail. With your local Bryant dealer, you're getting more than just a technician. You're getting someone who pays attention to your needs and the little things that make a big difference. It takes a dealer you can rely on. And to keep your family warm this winter,
here, let me show you how this works.
It takes Bryant.
Bryant, whatever it takes.
And to keep your family comfortable, it takes Smiley One Heating and Cooling. Find them at smiley1.com.
Date in sports history, 1957, North Carolina wins the 19th NCAA basketball tournament, beating Kansas 54-53 in 3 overtimes. No shot clock in that game, of course. Wilt Chamberlain becomes the 4th MVP to play for the losing team, scoring 23 points in the final, and he grabbed a total of 14 rebounds on that. Interesting story, in the 3 overtimes, the first overtime, each team scored 2 points. Second overtime, nobody scored. And in the third time, Kansas was outscored by a score of 6-5 in triple overtime. 216-575-0403 is the number to call. Dan Labbe is here from cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. Tomorrow night, Bud Shaw will join us. D-Man Dennis Maniloff on Wednesday. And hopefully Mary Kay Cabot will join us on Thursday. That's this week's update. Let's update a look at the Browns defense, the defensive line, linebackers, and secondary. Put it all together, you got 11 guys who have to play. They're the 11 best players they can find. Let's take a look right now. Here's your first-team offense. The line with Myles-Garrett, Larry Ogunjobi, Sheldon Richardson, and Olivier Vernon at this point. Second team, Chad Thomas, Andrew-Billings, got him from Cincinnati. Eli Anku and Porter Gustin. Names you either have to memorize or you don't have to worry about. But certainly that top line of defense looks pretty good to me, doesn't it, to you, Dan?
You like that front four, especially if the young guys, Garrett and Ogunjobi, continue to develop and grow. And this is a contract year for Ogunjobi, so he's going to want to play. He's going to want to get that big money after this season. So that's always good when a guy's playing in a contract year. And credit to Sheldon Richardson, too. He got paid last offseason, and he was really good for this football team last year.
You take a look at the projected defensive line, and you wonder, you put a bunch of guys out there, talented guys on paper, but they also have to mesh too. There was a time offensive linemen and defensive linemen had to work together for 2 or 3 seasons, let alone 2 or 3 weeks, but that's the way the modern game is played.
And you have less time to do it now, and especially this year with off-season programs. I mean, there's a chance that they might not even have an off-season program this year. They're already going to be shortened, so you have even less time to kind of mesh. There's less contact periods. It's a lot harder for these 4 guys to kind of figure each other out. So that's why you kind of see teams starting a little slower in September nowadays, as opposed to the old days where you'd want to get out to these fast starts. September is sort of a, hey, we're still getting to know each other period.
let's assume it's a tough assumption to do, but let's say they don't lose that much ground. Let's say they open around September, mid-September, something like that. Do the Browns have any advantage to that, or are all teams in the same boat?
I would imagine the teams that have the advantage would be the teams that have less turnover. And I think for the Browns, the problem is they're trying to install a brand new offensive system. There's no continuity there. Defensively, even they're trying to install a new defensive system, although that's a little bit easier. They're still in the 4-3 at least. It's just a new coordinator with new philosophies. But I would imagine a team like the Browns would be at a disadvantage with less time to prepare because they just have more turnover to deal with.
Yeah, not only the turnover and the new schemes, but a new head coach, new coaches and all that. If they were Minnesota guys, certainly they know the coach here, but there's a lot of learning periods that I just don't think in a normal training camp you can get it going in the 3-4 weeks that they have to do that.
Yeah, and some of it even comes down to language, right? Like Kevin Stefanski calls something different than what maybe Austin Hooper had in Atlanta, so they have to get on the same page on that. So
could be the same play call.
Yeah, exactly. It's just called a different thing, and now you've got to learn that. And Baker Mayfield is again with another coordinator. He's got to get used to that. So it's going to present some challenges for this team.
All right, here's the most important question in the offseason. Ready?
Ready.
Know anything about the new uniforms?
I don't. Other than
come on, get your people on it.
I'm fairly certain they're going to be a little more like the traditional uniform.
Yeah, let them go back to 19. Let them go to 1964. Just use those same uniforms.
I don't think they're going to go back to white helmets with numbers on the side, but I think they are going to go back to the older school. Yeah, I think. Although I don't know, I'd maybe be. Well, I shouldn't say that. People will get mad at me. I don't mind the white helmets.
I think no, you're not going to see the white helmet. I hope not. Anyway, are you going to see
no
the Tennessee color of orange or not?
I think the orange is still going to stay oranger, but I think it's going to look a little more old school.
Okay, I'm for it. That's good. That's good enough for me. 216-575-0403 is the number to call. You've got Dan Labbe here, cleveland.com, and the Plain Dealer. There's no rest for the wicked. It's nonstop out there. Thought you were going to get some time off here.
You never get time off. That's for June and July. The NFL starts the league year. They go right ahead with it, and I guess I think for a lot of people, it gave them a little bit of a sense of normalcy. So you'll kind of take that distraction here as everything is going on around all of us.
All right, here, if you want to get scared looking one unit, let's take a look at the linebackers, see what they got going there. Mack Wilson, who actually played pretty well, B.J. Goodson and Sione Takitaki, Cade Davis, Willie Harvey, and Jermaine Grace. Anything that stands out to you as far as the linebackers are concerned?
Well, they're going to be asking a lot of Mack Wilson right now, and you wonder how many linebackers they're going to end up playing. If it's they have one linebacker out there a lot, two linebackers out there a lot. I don't think we'll see a lot of three linebacker sets, but they're asking a lot of Mack Wilson, and they're really going to ask a lot of Sione Takitaki because he didn't play a lot last year outside of special teams. So we're going to see what those guys can do. But if Mack Wilson has that green sticker and has to make the calls, he sounded like a guy last year that felt like he was up for it. But it's different to actually say you can do it than to actually do it.
How much of a hand will you think that Stefanski's going to have defensively? Obviously, he's an offensive-minded coach. How much has he turned over to Woods, and what'll that look like?
I think he's going to let Woods really kind of run that thing. I mean, he'll be involved, and he'll be in meetings, and he'll do what a head coach has to do on the defensive side. But I think he's smart enough to understand you hired this defensive coordinator, a guy that's done it before, was part of that really good San Francisco defense last year. You hired this guy to come in and run your defense, sort of be the head coach of your defense, and I think he's going to allow him to do that.
216-575-0403 is the number to call. You've been hearing me talk, and not just talk, but rave about Northeast Factory Direct. Been doing it for several months right now. This is a place you want to go. Obviously, most people think of the low prices that they look at. You know what? West 140th Street in Cleveland, Lakeland Boulevard, Freeway Drive, that's in Macedonia, and northeastfactorydirect.com. Many of you have been to those stores, and you know the drill. What are you waiting for? You got high-quality name-brand furniture and hot tubs for about half the price the fancy retail stores pay, and they also have great department for kitchen cabinets, all from northeastfactorydirect.com, and the three great locations, east, west, and north. Before we take a break, I want to look at one more thing, and that's the secondary, see where that stands. as far as the Browns are concerned. We've looked at the other parts of the lineup, and we'll finish off the defense, taking a look at the secondary, see what you have. Denzel Ward trying to stay away from injuries. Greedy Williams, Carl Joseph, who they just signed. Same thing with Sendejo. Terrence Mitchell, Kevin Johnson, J.T. Hassel, and Sheldrick Redwine. Anything stand out there, Dan?
You're really counting on those two young corners. Like you said, Denzel Ward has to stay healthy. Greedy Williams, too, has to stay healthy. They both had hamstring issues last year. A couple of veterans at safety, but no real long-term answer there at the moment, neither of those guys. But they're putting a lot on those two young corners to continue to develop. I have faith in Denzel Ward. I think he's been really good when he's been on the field. Greedy Williams, still a work in progress, but that rookie year can be tough for a corner. Those guys have to be really good on the outside.
That's what I was going to ask you about Denzel Ward. If you take the injuries aside, which I don't think you can, but if you could, how good has he played the last 2 years?
I felt like he's been really good. He's starting to become. I hate to throw around that word shutdown corner because that's really for the elite of the elite. But he's got the potential to be that type of corner. I know he doesn't have a ton of interceptions necessarily, but he's a guy that's really athletic, can run with receivers, kind of deceptively strong. We've seen him rip the football out a couple times from guys. I think Denzel Ward is a really good corner who's only going to get better, but health is going to be an issue with him moving forward. He's got to stay on the field.
Sokolowski's University Inn is the oldest family-owned and operated restaurant in all of Northeastern Ohio. They're trying to stay open for your needs. You can take orders to go. Check them out. You can check out the website, Sokolowski's University Inn, and check that out for the menu. And go down, pick it up, and you're going to be happy. Well, it's tough times to be happy, but you're going to be happy with what you get from Mike and Bernie Sokolowski's University Inn in the Tremont area since 1923. We'll come back in a moment. We'll check out our Facebook question of the day. We'll get to your responses. That and more. More Sports and Les Levine continues exclusively on cleveland.com.
Get Nature Stone and never replace your garage flooring again. Your concrete is cracked, uneven, and not safe. Paints and poly coatings don't last, are slippery, and give worthless warranties. Nature Stone permanently corrects cracked, uneven concrete, eliminates slipping hazards, and is easy to clean. And with Russell's Promise, our true unconditional warranty, there are no hidden maintenance costs. Act now and save up to 50% with our volume discount pricing. Must be installed by the end of March. Schedule your free cost estimate easily online today at naturestone.com. It's not just a floor. Wow, it's Nature Stone.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line, a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
This date in Les Levine history, March 23rd, 1958. Les comes in second place in the Roland School spelling bee. He misspelled the word misspell. 216-575-0403. Dan Labbe, you think that's an easy word to spell?
That's a deceptively tough word. and honestly, look, if things keep going like they're going, these TV networks might be calling you up to get some video of these Les Levine sports history moments.
Wait till you see what we have at
classic
the end of this,
TV moment.
Wait till you see the classic moment we have at the end of this segment. If you haven't seen it before, it's unbelievable. Facebook question of the day and answers, more importantly. After a weekend where the networks broadcast some old sporting events, What Cleveland sport event would you like to see broadcast? Well, a lot of answers. A lot of people had suggestions. Glenn Berger is one of them. He wants to see the Browns championship game win over the Colts December 27th, 1964. And for those who don't know, that game was blacked out locally. Glenn Berger wanted that one. Gerard Morelli, the Browns winning the 64 championship and the Indians winning the 48 World Series. Do they have kinescopes of these? No, but there are highlights out there, highlight packages of the 48 World Series. Dennis Davis says the clinching game of the Cavs and Bullets in the Miracle of Richfield year. Michael Cirolo, Game 5 of the 07 Conference Finals where the Cavs won in double overtime. LeBron James scored 29 of the last 30 points that the Cavs scored that game. Andy Mees says the Tribe comeback win when they were down 14-2 to the Seattle Mariners, and they won that game. That was on ESPN. That game is a perfect example that as long as your offense has a few outs to play with, anything can happen in the game of baseball. Let's continue on. Aaron Wood, he'd like to see Cleveland versus Atlanta, the Browns, in 2002, Week 17. The Browns won 24-16, moved into the playoffs, and unfortunately couldn't beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in that game. Dennis Northcutt dropped a pass that would have put the game away. Trent Harrop, any Price and friends, I assume he means Mark Price, Cavs game without the hurt of a bad ending. They were fun to watch. Dave Shoup says, I always wish there could be the entire Cardiac Kids season. That's 1980. One game a week. Hard to believe it was 40 years ago. Greg Burns says, I'd like to see the Browns 64 championship game. Wayne Richard Lyons, the initial opening day at Jacobs Field back in the 90s. That would have been 1994. Randy Johnson almost threw a no-hitter. Dan Gillespie would like to see the Browns beating the Steelers 51-0. The Steelers when Bud Carson was head coach in his first game. Mark Kearns says he'd like to see Indians 10-cent beer night game, which, by the way, was not televised locally, but we just happen to have some highlights of that game. Have you ever seen this before, Dan?
I think I've seen some clips here and there.
All right, watch number 21
but
in the
not a
gray
lot.
uniforms. That would be Mike Hargrove as a first baseman for the Texas Rangers. We'll be able to check him out. He was a little active that night in his first trip to the city of Cleveland. Not his last, I would say. Let's see what we've got from the championship, from the beer night, 10-cent beer night, which, by the way, to the very end, Ted Bonda, who is one of the 40 owners of the Cleveland Indians, always claimed to me, and he made a good argument to me, not a real good argument. He said it was a successful promotion because the fact that it was one of the most embarrassing events of sports history, and certainly in Cleveland. His point was the night before they had about 6,000 people, and beer night gave them about 25,000. So from his standpoint, as a ticket salesman, it was a good night.
But and we're still talking about it, right?
Yeah.
So I guess he
It's
did what he
2020.
wanted to do.
Yeah, so we'll have highlights of that. In fact, I think we'll have them shortly. Maybe
the
not.
Arab oil embargo against the U.S. is lifted. Patty Hearst is kidnapped by the Symbionese Liberation Army, and President Nixon is forced to resign as a result of the Watergate break-in and cover-up. The year is 1974, and our Indians are trying to get fans in the seats at Municipal Stadium. Ballpark promotions are the rage, and one of the most infamous 10-cent beer nights took place on June 4th, 1974.
I thought, my God, look at all the people at the game. You know, we didn't have many people in here. We had maybe 3 times as much as we normally have. And I thought it was wonderful.
Fans are enjoying a rally that sees the Tribe tie the game at 5 with 2 runs in the ninth. Then with 2 outs and the bases loaded, some of the 25,000 faithful try to help the home team a little too much.
A couple of guys ran out. The right fielder then was Jeff Burrows. And a couple of fans ran out in the field, and one of them grabbed his cap. And Burrows chased him, and the fans came on the field. Oh, it was terrible. And, and then the Rangers players were out there, and Billy Martin was right in the front of them, and the Indians charged out in the field. They weren't fighting each other as much as they were fighting the fans to protect themselves.
One of the Rangers players caught in the middle of the whole mess is number 21, first baseman Mike Hargrove. Umpire Nestor Shylock tries to restore order and continue the game, but his efforts are in vain.
Nestor Shylock, forfeited the game, and later after this, then we went down to interview him. He said, it was like a jungle out there, man. It was like a jungle out there. Somebody might have gotten killed, and he was right. It was terrible.
Who would think that a small riot would occur? But it did, and the game was forfeited. And I took a great deal of blasting about it, including, as I said, it was called in New York the next day. Explain why I did it.
I think we knew why he did it. Sell some tickets. He still was happy about it. That was recorded. It's pretty interesting stuff there. I always thought, Dan, if you follow what they were saying, the Indians were down 5-1. They scored 4 to tie it. Had the bases loaded, it's 5-5. And then Billy Martin sort of instigated it because he knew that the crowd was riled up and he thought maybe he could get a forfeit out of it, which he did. No dummy, Billy Martin.
It's a good strategy. And, I remember, I forget what year it was, but when the Indians got snowed out, Mike Hargrove coming out and talking to umpires and kind of delaying to try and get that game.
How can you play in this kind of weather? And he's doing it in front of the Cleveland fans. Anyway, that's great stuff. That's the only, as to our knowledge, that's the only video available on that. That game was not televised either in Texas or in Cleveland. 216-575-0403 if you'd like to get in for the last segment of the show with Dan Labbe. Tomorrow night, Bud Shaw will be joining us. And we'll take a break. We'll come on back in a moment. More Sports and Les-Levine seen exclusively on cleveland.com. You can check us out on the voicemail of Truth and Reason, 216-200-6650. Call anytime, leave us a message, and we will respond to it. You can do that. You see us live from 6 until 7 p.m. Eastern Time. The other 23 hours of the day, you can get us on the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Back in a moment, More Sports and Les-Levine continues exclusively on cleveland.com.
Get Nature Stone and never replace your garage flooring again. Your concrete is cracked, uneven, and not safe. Paints and poly coatings don't last, are slippery, and give worthless warranties. Nature Stone permanently corrects cracked, uneven concrete, eliminates slipping hazards, and is easy to clean. And with Russell's Promise, our true unconditional warranty, there are no hidden maintenance costs. Act now and save up to 50% with our volume discount pricing. Must be installed by the end of March. Schedule your free cost estimate easily online today at naturestone.com. It's not just a floor. Wow, it's Nature Stone.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's Kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget. Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
Tomorrow night, Bud Shaw will join us from WKYC.com from 6 until 7 live. That's Eastern Time. Please join us for that. The D-Man, Dennis Manilow, on Wednesday. Mary Kay Cabot on Thursday. Dan Labbe is here from cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. Dan, I want to go over a couple of emails before we get to quickies so you can respond to them. Right. Paul in Findlay says, I heard Clay Matthews is available. That's Clay Matthews' son, Clay Matthews. Should the Browns try for him? It's a no-brainer to him. From a PR standpoint, I don't think he could do better than that. The question is, can he still play?
I think he can still play a little, and I think if the price is right, you take a shot and bring in a guy that obviously Browns fans are going to embrace.
Oh, for sure. For sure. All right, let's do a couple of How Come Quickies, and then we'll get back and finish up talking Browns with Dan Labbe of cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. Stu, who has become a prolific How Come Quickie respondent, says, how come it became Carmen policy for the Browns to hire inept GMs? They actually named it the Carmen policy. I didn't know that.
It's well done.
Very well done. Hopefully that's been buried, B-E-R-R-I-E-D. Okay. This from
See?
Big Ed. Big Ed's got a couple. How come I just found out I'm colorblind and I said that came out of the purple? How come the parsley farmer asked his lawyer if he can get sued, can they garnish his wages? No, they don't garnish your wages if you're a parsley farmer. Are there parsley farmers? I don't know.
I don't know if there are parsley farmers.
No. Mr. Gullible checks in. How come I waited so long for dinner that my patience has stretch marks? Wow. That gave birth to a
Mr.
whole
Gullible,
new
he's
thing.
got some tough acts to follow here.
Well, he's got one more. Mr. Gullible says, how come I'm in a long-distance relationship, but the restraining order ends tomorrow? And finally,
all right,
John Patrick, how come when Shakespeare was in quarantine, he wrote King Lear, but when I'm in quarantine, I write How Come Quickies? There's a better market for How Come Quickies than King Lear right now, I would think.
The How Come Quickies are the new King Lear.
It's
They're the King Lear of the modern generation.
And
yeah.
if they're in quarantine, you got plenty of time to edit them and make them funnier, to turn a letter here, a word here or there. All right, we got about a minute or so.
Why not do both?
You could do both. Absolutely. All right, got about a minute. What do you have on your mind, Browns-wise?
I just think when you look at free agency, sort of, we talked about it earlier, the Browns maybe didn't make the big moves. Obviously, they paid a tight end a lot of money, paid a tackle a lot of money, but they didn't make the huge Odell Beckham type move like they made last year, or the Jarvis-Landry type move they made the year before when they kind of remade that offense. I just really like that they had specific needs to fill, and they went out and filled them with some of the best players available. It just shows, I think, that when they say they all want to be on the same page and they talk about alignment, it seems like maybe they are actually all aligned.
All right, that all being said, is there still a deal out there that is begging to be made?
I was looking at some free agents today, and I think if there is a deal to be made, it would probably have to do with maybe an Everson-Griffen or someone like that. I don't know if there's another big name out there for this team to go get, and I don't know if they're, you have to keep an eye on Anthony Harris in Minnesota. Maybe that's the one name to watch in some sort of trade. But other than that, I'm not sure if there's a huge deal out there to be made.
But there's still the draft, there's still free agency, and there's still trades. So they're all in play right now.
I think that's the big thing to remember. We're still a month away from the draft, and they don't finalize this roster till September. So there's a lot that can happen between now and then.
Is there a date for that in their own minds, that they're done dealing?
I don't think they're ever going to be done. I think they're going to be aggressive looking at trades when guys become available. I think they're going to be aggressive spending money. I don't think they're going to be reckless, but I think if they have an opportunity to improve this roster and try and win some football games, they're going to get after it.
All right, Dan, thanks so much for joining us. I think you're going to hear a lot from me or my crew in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully we're back to normal soon, but hopefully we can see you quite often over the next couple of weeks or months.
Yeah, always happy to do it. Thanks for having me.
All right, Dan. Dan Labbe, read his great stuff on cleveland.com and The Plain Dealer. That'll do it for us tonight. Bud Shaw, WKYC.com. That'll be tomorrow night. And the D-Man, Dennis Maniloff, Wednesday, Mary Kay Cabot. That'll be on Thursday. Of all the shows I've ever done, this was the most recent.